The sun glared down on Joint Base Andrews like a relentless overseer, casting long shadows across the tarmac and baking the asphalt beneath the heavy boots of soldiers. Families and officials gathered along the arrivals terminal. The air pulsed with excitement and nervous energy, the kind that always accompanied homecomings, wives craning their necks for the first glimpse of husbands, children clutching homemade signs scrawled with "Welcome Home, Daddy," and old friends exchanging nods heavily with shared experiences and silent understandings. Among them stood Ethan Caldwell, though at that moment he felt as detached from the scene as a ghost observing the living. The fabric of his military-issued shirt clung to his back, damp with sweat, but his body barely registered the discomfort. His pulse, steady as always, beat like a silent metronome in his ears. His eyes, honed by years in the Navy SEALs to scan, analyze, and calculate, swept the crowd, but lingered on no one. In his right hand, the dull buzz of his phone shattered any illusion of normalcy. With the precision of a man trained to interpret the subtlest of threats, he lifted the device and read the message: "Don't come home. The locks are changed. The kids are done with you. We're finished." It might as well have been an IED detonation in the pit of his stomach. For a fleeting moment, a crack in the armor, he faltered. Not physically. His posture remained straight, his broad shoulders unmoving, his expression unreadable. But internally, the fortress he'd built to withstand chaos both on the battlefield and off shuddered. Around him, joyful reunions unfolded like carefully choreographed scenes: a child running into her father's arms, a woman burying her face into her husband's neck, the distant hum of helicopter blades receding into the horizon. But Ethan stood an island of silence amid the tide of relief. He reread the message, each word slicing deeper this time. His thumb hovered over the screen as muscle memory warred with emotion. Then, like a steel trap snapping shut, his mind recalibrated. The personnel had just become tactical. He typed a response, terse and deliberate. "Understood. Proceed as planned." It wasn't for Lillian, his wife, at least not in sentiment. It was a signal to himself, to the unseen machinery of strategy and survival that had carried him through Black Ops in Syria, through hostage extractions in Somalia, through the jungle thickets of Colombia. His marriage might be over, his family fractured. However, Ethan Caldwell was not a man easily taken by surprise. Pocketing the phone, he exhaled through his nose, steady and controlled. The enemy had revealed themselves not with gunfire or explosives, but with deceit, betrayal, and manipulation. The battlefield had shifted, but the mission remained. He adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and moved, each step precise as a soldier's march. Though now the war was domestic, his unit was absent, his team disbanded, but Ethan's mind assembled resources with the efficiency of years of covert planning. The first call was to Alina Voss. He ducked into a quiet alcove of the terminal, away from the beaming families and welcome banners, and scrolled to her contactor name, buried among classified ops and secure lines, but just as critical in its own right. Alina Voss wasn't a SEAL or operative. She was more than just a divorce attorney with a reputation for dismantling her opponents as ruthlessly as any special forces unit. The line rang twice. "Caldwell." Her voice answered crisp and sentimental, already assessing. "Need to meet today," Ethan said, skipping formalities. "Understood," she replied without hesitation. "You're back stateside. Just landed. Est the situation? My house isn't mine anymore." A pause, calculating. "Georgetown?" she asked. "Yes, Nathaniel Krauss." He offered the name like a sniper's target. The pause on the other end deepened. "Cross Ventures?" she asked, voice cool but edged now with interest or concern. "Same. I'll brief you in person. 1 hour. My office." The line disconnected. Ethan pocketed the phone, his gaze sharpening. Nathaniel Cross. The name wasn't unfamiliar even from halfway across the world. Whispers of the venture capitalists' influence reached him. But now, the man wasn't a distant figure in financial tabloids. He was entangled with Ethan's wife, his children, and his home. His next steps unfolded like muscle memory. Secure intel, verify threats, protect assets, neutralize opposition. Only this time, the battlefield was Georgetown, and the stakes weren't national security, they were his family. As he exited the terminal, duffel slung over his shoulder, the summer heat pressed in again, but the ice in his veins remained. This was no longer a homecoming. It was a counterstrike, The sleek, glass-paneled lobby of Voss and Associates overlooked the heart of Washington, DCIA city built on power plays and calculated words. To most, it was intimidating. To Ethan Caldwell, it was familiar territory. He sat opposite Ali Voss, the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her framing the marble monuments of the Capitol. Her tailored navy suit, pinned hair, and steely expression completed the image of a woman who never lost. "Start from the beginning," she commanded, sliding a legal pad across the desk. Ethan recounted the text message. The locks changed. The children's silence. Nathaniel Cross. Alina listened, fingers steepled, her eyes narrowing with each revelation. When he finished, she spoke with surgical precision. "I've handled worse," she declared, "but this is personal warfare dressed in legalese." She retrieved a file from her drawer, Lillian Caldwell's premarital agreement, financial records, and a familiar document Ethan recognized instantly. The family trust. "Cross may have money," Alina continued, "but he lacks one thing: control of your military earnings and that trust fund your father-in-law protected. That's our leverage. I'll use every tool," Ethan replied, voice low but resolute. "Good. First, we freeze assets within the bounds of the law. Next, we monitor communication emails, financial transfers, anything that exposes fraud." Ethan's phone buzzed again. This time, it was Marcus Reed, the PI Alina asked. Ethan nodded and answered. "Marcus, update. Your house is compromised." Marcus reported. "Black Mercedes. The same plate was spotted 5 times this week. Security cams show Lillian and Cross intimate the kids." Ethan's tone tightened. "They're there. And here's the kicker: encrypted emails on her laptop. Not normal domestic stuff. Financials. Offshore indicators." Elena's eyes gleamed, a predator sensing weakness. "Fraud," she muttered. "Possibly worse." Ethan's jaw flexed. "Stay on them," Ethan instructed Marcus. "Full surveillance. Full discretion." As the call ended, Ethan's decision crystallized. The betrayal was real, but so was his resolve. This was no longer emotional, it was operational, and Ethan Caldwell always finished the mission. The cool air of the taxi barely touched Ethan's skin as he sat motionless in the back seat. Phone pressed to his ear, eyes scanning the city, his city as it blurred past the windows. Traffic lights flickered. Pedestrians hustled along the sidewalks. Politicians in dark suits exited sleek cars in front of marble facades. Washington, D.C., city of quiet wars and smiling enemies. The line clicked. "Marcus," Ethan began, his voice calm but wired with urgency. "Talk to me," came the response, gruff, steady. The voice of a man who'd seen the same horrors Ethan had, and carried them in the same quiet way. "I want eyes everywhere." "Already working on it," Marcus replied. "I've got a team watching the house. Cross is bull driving that Mercedes right into your driveway like he owns it." "He won't," Ethan said simply. "Lillian, emotionally compromised, possibly manipulated," Ethan assessed coldly. "But the real concern is the encrypted traffic you found." "Yeah, offshore accounts, dummy LLCs. I'm tracing them, but Cross is good, hides his tracks." "Then be better," Ethan ordered, "and keep me informed. I'll be setting legal fire to their plans with Alina. You stay in the shadows, where you need me," Marcus affirmed. "You want me digging deeper? Crosses, businesses, associates, all of it. Personal, professional, financial. Find me a weakness." A brief pause, then Marcus added, "And the kids." Ethan's jaw tensed. "Lucas is angry. Sophie's confused. They've been poisoned against me, but they're still my kids. I'll fix that." "You always were stubborn," Marcus chuckled, but it lacked humor. "No," Ethan corrected. "I'm thorough. Copy that. I'll update you tonight." The line went dead. Ethan tucked the phone away, his gaze settling on the familiar skyline, the Washington Monument, stabbing upward like a bayonet in the sky. He wasn't a man unraveling. He was a soldier recalculating. The first call had been made. The operation was underway. And Ethan Caldwell never lost sight of the target. The brick facade of the modest Georgetown row house was bathed in the soft amber glow of the setting sun as Ethan approached. The familiar neighborhood with its cobblestone sidewalks, meticulously trimmed hedges, and overpriced coffee shops felt like hostile ground now. He remained in the shadows, observing from across the street. The black Mercedes Marcus had mentioned was parked confidently in the driveway, a flag planted on conquered territory. But Ethan hadn't come alone. Marcus Reed, clad in a gray hoodie and jeans, blended seamlessly with the evening crowd. His stance, however, feet shoulder width apart, eyes scanning, hand casually resting near his concealed sidearm, betrayed his background. Perimeters clear, Marcus reported quietly as Ethan joined him. Neighbors don't suspect a thing. Cross plays the charming boyfriend well. Ethan's gaze darkened. Doesn't change what he is. No, Marcus agreed. But it changes how we hit him. The two men watched as silhouettes moved behind the drawn curtains. Laughter faint but distinct filtered through the open window. It twisted Ethan's gut. Pulled Cross's file, Marcus continued, his tone shifting to business. Harvard grad, built Cross Ventures from nothing. Public face of philanthropy, tech investments, sustainability, bullshit. And the private face, dirtier than a cartel's accountant, Marcus confirmed. Shell companies, tax havens, laundered money, questionable ties to offshore interests including Costa Rica. Ethan's jaw clenched. Same place, Lillian wired. Funds too. Exactly the resort. A front, Marcus said simply. No development, no permits. But the money's real and gone. Ethan's fists tightened at his sides. And the kids. Lucas is acting out. School reports, Sophie's withdrawn. They've met Cross. Been to dinners. He's worming his way in. Ethan exhaled slowly, calculating. We do this methodically, he stated. We exposed the fraud, cut the financial legs out from under him. Then I reclaim my family. Marcus nodded. And Lillian. Collateral, for now, Ethan replied coldly. But if she's been manipulated, I'll pull her out too. And if not, Ethan's eyes hardened, his SEAL training evident. Then she chose the wrong side. They lingered, a moment longer, watching the facade of the house that had once been Ethan's sanctuary, now a battlefield. I'll keep digging, Marcus promised. Stepping back into the shadows. You handle the legal, I'll handle the dirt. Ethan watched him disappear down the street, then turned away. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was strategic. And Ethan Caldwell never entered a fight unprepared. The room was quiet, but Ethan's mind was a battlefield. Alone in his hotel suite, overlooking the Potomac. He sat on the edge of the bed, the glow of the city bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His phone lay beside him silent for now, and its last message from Marcus still lingering on the screen. Encrypted emails, offshore accounts, Cross's fingerprints everywhere. But beyond the evidence, beyond the tactics and strategy, there was the ache, the sharp, unexpected pang of loss, not of property, but of trust, of the family he thought unshakable. On the nightstand, framed in silver, was a photo he'd brought back from his last deployment. It showed Lillian's, smiling radiant with Lucas, and Sophie tucked under each arm, their grins wide, their eyes bright. He traced the edge of the frame with calloused fingers, remembering the family barbecue, the bedtime stories, the quiet mornings making pancakes for the kids before school. Gone. Replaced by silence, by manipulation, by betrayal. Ethan's military training had taught him to compartmentalize, to pack emotion into a box and bury it beneath discipline. But tonight, the box cracked. His chest tightened. His eyes burned. And for the first time in years, Ethan Caldwell allowed himself to truly feel the grief, the rage, the confusion. He wasn't just fighting for custody papers or financial control. He was fighting for fragments of a life that still meant everything. The betrayal ran deep, but so did his resolve. After several minutes he straightened, wiping a hand down his face. The photo returned to the nightstand. His mask of control slid back into place. This wasn't about what he'd lost. It was about what he would take back. The breach had been emotional, but the counterstrike that would be surgical. The following morning, Ethan sat across from Elena Voss in her office's steel and glass fortress, perched high above the city, its walls lined with law books and degrees, its atmosphere as cold and efficient as its owner. Elena spread the documents across the mahogany desk, her expression unreadable. Her manicured finger tapped the family trust agreement, the premarital financial disclosures, and copies of recent bank transfers. Cross is sloppy, she said with clinical precision. He thinks his offshore moves are invisible. They're not. Ethan studied the paper's lines of legal jargon, account numbers, the paper trail Marcus had unearthed. His pulse remained steady, his mind calculating. What's our opening salvo? He asked. We hit where it hurts. The money, Helena replied. The trust fund is locked by your father-in-law's provisions. Lillian can't access it without your consent. Cross was counting on that money for the fake resort, for leverage over her. We cut it off. Frozen assets. Ethan nodded. Correct, Elena confirmed. We file for an emergency financial injunction this afternoon. Cross's attorneys will panic. Lillian, she realized her charming boyfriend isn't as invincible as he seems. Ethan leaned back, eyes narrowing. And the kids? Custody is complex, Alina admitted, but manipulation, fraud, and reckless financial decisions, those weigh heavily. She slid another file toward him: social media posts, screenshots, notes from Sophie's school counselor hinting at behavioral changes, Lucas's recent absences from practice. Document everything, she instructed. We build the case methodically. No emotion, just facts. I'm used to operating in hostile territory, Ethan replied. This is no different. It's messier, Alina corrected. No clear enemy lines. Clean exits, but with discipline, we win. A quiet moment passed. How far are you willing to go? She asked finally. Ethan's gaze was ice. As far as I have to, he answered. Alina smiled, the sharp, calculating smile of someone who thrived in high-stakes warfare, legal or otherwise. Then let's begin, she declared. The counter-strike had moved to the courtroom, and Ethan Caldwell never lost a fight. The grainy photos flickered across Ethan's laptop screen like pieces of an ugly puzzle, slowly snapping into place. Marcus had delivered in spades. The surveillance images were clear enough. Nathaniel Cross and Lillian, arms linked, stepping out of a private car onto the front steps of Ethan's Georgetown home. Their expressions were intimate, comfortable, as if they belonged there. The next set of photos sent Ethan's pulse into a slow, simmering boil. Lucas and Sophie. Lucas-16, broad-shouldered like his father, stood stiffly beside Cross, eyes downcast, shoulders hunched, a teenager trying to disappear into himself. Sophie, 14, Brit-eyed but visibly conflicted, sat beside Lillian at an upscale restaurant, Nathaniel's hand casually resting on her mother's shoulder. It wasn't just infidelity anymore, it was infiltration. Marcus's voice crackled through the encrypted call on Ethan's burner phone. He's in deep, Marcus reported. Not just with Lillian. Cross has been around the kids, taking them to events, playing the cool, rich stepdad. Ethan's jaw clenched. How long? Months, Marcus replied. Possibly started before your last deployment. Text logs suggest contact while you were overseas. Ethan exhaled slowly, the information slotting into his mental battlefield map, and the offshore accounts. Connected, Marcus confirmed. Cross's shell companies summon Lillian's name tie directly to funds wired from your accounts. She's being used, Caldwell, or she's complicit. Either way, the money trails dirty. Ethan's gaze hardened on the final image: Cross, slipping a key into the lock of Ethan's front door. Send me everything, Ethan ordered. I want files on every shell company, every wire transfer, every timestamp. Already done, Marcus replied. And one more thing: Cross isn't working alone. Ethan straightened. Explain. Encrypted emails mentioned a silent partner offshore, Latin America, possibly cartel connections. Ethan's stomach tightened, not with fear, but with the clarity of a soldier recognizing escalation. This isn't just domestic, Ethan muttered. No, Marcus agreed. This is organized. The photos, the accounts, the manipulation of his family. The battlefield had expanded, and Ethan Caldwell never fought blind. Ethan had seen enough satellite imagery and intercepted communications to read between lines others missed, but nothing in military intelligence compared to the gut punch of scrolling through Lucas's social media. It was all there, hidden behind teenage defiance and cryptic captions. Photos of Lucas at parties, his face hard, detached. A recent post caught Ethan's attention. A grainy photo of Lucas with a caption that read, "Blood doesn't make you family." Ethan's pulse slowed, not out of calm, but calculated control. Sophie's profile painted a different picture. Her photos, group selfies, fancy dinners, often included Lillian and, disturbingly, Nathaniel Cross. In one, Cross had his hand on Sophie's shoulder, a paternal smile on his face. It was strategic. Cross wasn't just buying Lillian's affection, he was buying loyalty from Ethan's children. Ethan leaned back in the hotel chair, fingers steepled, mind racing. Lucas's anger wasn't baseless. Lillian had fed them a narrative. Their father chose war over family, abandoned them for deployments, replaced love with duty. A half-truth, but in war, perception mattered as much as facts. Ethan opened a secure file. Marcus had compiled records from Lucas's school, failing grades, fights, a recent suspension for walking out of class. The boy was spiraling. Sophie's file reflected emotional withdrawal. Teacher notes on her hesitancy, her dependence on Cross's presence. Ethan's jaw flexed. It wasn't enough to expose Cross's fraud. He had to win back his children's trust, not with force, but with truth. Time to reinspect, he muttered to himself, the language of a soldier preparing for infiltration. But this mission wasn't about extraction or targets. It was about hearts and minds, and Ethan Caldwell never left his people behind. The house felt like enemy territory. Ethan slipped through the backyard under the cover of night, his movements silent, precise old habits from 1,000 covert operations surfacing with ease. The landscaping had changed, the flower beds rearranged, a sleek modern patio replacing the old wooden deck, but the bones of the house were the same. His house, his home, for now occupied by strangers and traitors. A faint glow escaped through the living room curtains, the flicker of a television, but the house was otherwise still. Ethan picked the side door lock with practiced efficiency, easing inside. Familiar scents: linen, cedar mixed with new ones, foreign cologne, expensive wine. He moved through the house, noting every change, family photos missing from the walls, his medals gone. Even the coat rack, once home to his navy peacoat, held only Cross's designer trench. Ethan's jaw tightened, but his focus never wavered. The study, the safe hidden behind a bookshelf. For years, he triggered the hidden latch, sliding the shelf aside, revealing the wall-mounted safe. His fingers moved over the keypad, the code, still unchanged. A small, defiant detail Lillian had overlooked. The door clicked open. Inside, documents, passports, a sealed envelope, yellowed with time. Ethan retrieved it, peeling back the flap. Inside, legal papers, his father-in-law's trust agreement, obscure but airtight clause, granting Ethan control over specific assets Cross and Lillian were counting on. And beneath it a letter, his father-in-law's handwriting. Ethan, you're reading this, the family is in trouble. You're a soldier, you understand loyalty, protection, sacrifice. This trust protects my daughter and grandchildren from outsiders, from greed, from betrayal. Use it wisely. Edward Ethan folded the letter, slipping it into his jacket. His eyes swept the room one last time. This wasn't a homecoming, it was reconnaissance. And now, he held leverage. The siphoned what it contained was his opening move. The real war was just beginning. Georgetown's historic streets were quiet under the cloak of midnight, but Ethan's mind buzzed with revelations. The safe had given him leverage, but it also raised questions. Marcus's message had been short. Meet me, corner of P Street and 31st. Bring the document. Ethan arrived to find Marcus parked under the heavy canopy of an old oak tree, his unmarked SUV blending into the shadows. Tell me you have good news, Ethan said as he slipped into the passenger seat. Marcus handed him a folder, his expression grim. Depends how you define good, Marcus replied. Ethan opened the folder: property records, shell company listings, and a map of the surrounding homes. His eyes narrowed at the highlighted parcel directly behind his house, his sprawling lot hidden from street view, the deed buried under layers of corporate ownership. Cross, Ethan muttered. Through a shell company, Marcus confirmed. Purchased 6 months ago. Plans for extensive renovations, high-end security system, underground garage, consolidating the properties, Ethan concluded. Turning my home into part of his empire, and isolating your kids in the process, Marcus added. New security means controlled access to the house, the kids, everything. Ethan processed the implications: strategic positioning, manipulation, legal entanglement. When do renovations start? Ethan asked. Blueprints are filed, contractors hired, materials ordered, Marcus replied. And here's where it gets interesting: the timeline. It predates your deployment. Ethan's jaw tightened. Cross had been planning this long before the betrayal surfaced. He's been embedded longer than I thought, Ethan said. And he's patient, Marcus added, calculated. But so are we. Ethan's grip tightened on the folder. We expose the connections, he declared. We disrupt the plan. And the kids. Ethan's eyes hardened. We take them back physically and emotionally. He vowed that the neighbor's secret was no longer hidden. It was a weak link one Ethan Caldwell would exploit. The artificial glow of the lacrosse field cast long shadows across the manicured grass. Ethan leaned against the chain-link fence, his eyes fixed on Lucas. The boy moved with mechanical precision, his broad shoulders hunched, his passes sharp, but devoid of spirit. It wasn't the game of a teenager enjoying himself. It was an outlet, a thinly veiled attempt to outrun frustration and anger. Ethan watched in silence as the practice wrapped up. Parents gathered by the sidelines, laughter, small talk, the usual suburban rituals. But Lucas ignored them all. Yanking off his helmet, storming toward the parking lot alone, Ethan stepped into his path. Lucas stopped, shoulders stiffening. "Dad," he said flatly. It wasn't a greeting, it was a challenge. "We need to talk," Ethan began. Lucas's jaw clenched. "We don't. You left. I was deployed. You chose it," Lucas snapped, eyes burning with hurt. "You always do. And now you think showing up here fixes that." Ethan took the blow, steady as ever. "I'm not here to fix anything," he replied. "I'm here because you're my son, and because someone's been filling your head with lies." Lucas shook his head, stepping back. "Nathaniel tells me the truth, does he?" Ethan's voice stayed low, controlled. "Ask him where the Costa Rica money went. Ask him what offshore accounts your mother's name is tied to." Lucas faltered just for a second, but the teenage walls snapped back up. "You don't know him," Lucas retorted. "He's here. You weren't." The words stung, but Ethan stood firm. "Watch closely," Ethan warned. "The truth always shows itself." Lucas hesitated, uncertainty flickering, but anger was a powerful shield. He turned away, walking off into the dark parking lot. Ethan exhaled. The ache in his chest, a familiar weight. This wasn't a victory, but it was a start. He'd seen it in Lucas's eyes, the cracks in the narrative, and cracks, with patience, became fractures. The conference room at Voss & Associates smelled faintly of coffee and quiet hostility. Ethan stood at the head of the table, while Elena Voss flipped through a stack of documents Marcus had delivered, each page a thread in the tangled financial web that Nathaniel Cross had woven. Offshore accounts, shell companies, fraudulent investments, and at the center, Lillian's name, signed on forms, wired funds, oblivious or complicit. The paper trail didn't lie. "Cross is bleeding her dry," Elena said, her voice sharp, calculated. "The Costa Rican resort, a ghost project, the LLCs, layers of obfuscation, and the cartel whispers, too much smoke for there not to be fire." Ethan's eyes scanned the spreadsheets, his military mind breaking down the structure like an enemy's defenses. "How much has she lost?" he asked. 1.5 million so far," Elena replied, "likely more tied up in pending transfers." Ethan exhaled slowly, processing. "And legal exposure?" "Significant," Elena admitted. "If she doesn't cooperate, she's liable financially and possibly criminally." Cross positioned her as the fall. Ethan realized aloud. "Classic scam," Elena agreed. "Charm, manipulate, trap them, financially then disappear." Ethan's fists clenched on the table's edge. "The kids, if we move fast, we use this to secure custody," Elena stated. "Her judgment is compromised, her assets vulnerable." Ethan nodded once. "We cut the financial legs out from under him," he declared. "Then we dismantle everything else." Elena's lips curled into a cold smile. "Now you're thinking like me," she replied. The web had ensnared his family, but Ethan Caldwell had always been good at cutting through lines of defense. The dimly lit pub near Foggy Bottom buzzed with low conversation and the clink of glassware. In the corner booth, Marcus nursed a beer, eyes scanning the room as Ethan approached. "Bad timing," Marcus muttered as Ethan slid into the seat across from him. "But this couldn't wait." Ethan's expression hardened. "What now?" Marcus slid a flash drive across the table. "Cross has friends, dangerous ones," Marcus explained. "I found emails, encrypted, routed through offshore servers." The name popping up, Miguel Serrano. Son froze. "Serrano cartel, money launderer, drug logistics, quiet, but lethal. If Cross is tangled with Serrano, this isn't just a con job, it's organized crime." Ethan's mind shifted gears from legal warfare to operational threat. "Are the kids in danger?" he asked, voice low but lethal. "Not yet, but if Cross gets desperate, if the Costa Rica operation collapses, he'll need leverage, and leverage means my family," Ethan concluded. Marcus nodded grimly. "You need to escalate," he warned. "Expose the fraud fast. Get the feds involved, keep the kids close." Ethan pocketed the flash drive. "I won't let them get caught in the crossfire," he vowed. "You might not have a choice," Marcus replied. "But you've faced worse." Ethan's eyes sharpened. The soldier, the strategist's fully awake. "No," Ethan corrected. "I've faced worse enemies, but nothing more important than this." The warning was clear, and so was the next move. The knock at Ethan's hotel room door came just after midnight. He approached cautiously, checked the peephole and froze. Sophie. She stood in the dim hallway, oversized hoodie pulled tight, her eyes red from crying, her shoulders curled in on themselves. Ethan opened the door. "Come in," he said quietly. Sophie slipped inside, wiping her face, avoiding his gaze. "Mom doesn't know I'm here," she began, voice shaky. Ethan motioned to the small table by the window. "Sit," he urged. She did, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her hoodie. "What happened?" Ethan asked, his tone steady but laced with concern. Sophie hesitated, then pulled out her phone, knocking it, scrolling to a photo and handed it to him. Ethan's stomach coiled. The image showed Lucas's wrist bruised, faint finger marks evident. Nathaniel grabbed him. Sophie whispered, "During an argument about you." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he forced his voice calm. "Has it happened before?" Sophie shook her head. "But he's different," she admitted, controlling. "He monitors Mom's phone, checks our messages. Lucas angry all the time, and Mom's scared." Ethan supplied. Sophie nodded, eyes filling again. "I didn't know what to do," she confessed. Ethan leaned forward. "You did exactly the right thing," he assured her, "coming to me." "Smart, brave," Sophie sniffed, managing a weak smile. Ethan's mind shifted instantly into protection mode. "You're not alone," he promised. "We're going to fix this. But I need your help." Sophie straightened slightly. "I'll do anything," she vowed. The discovery wasn't just proof of Cross's true nature. It was a turning point. And Ethan Caldwell always knew how to exploit an advantage. The diner was dimly lit, its chrome surfaces dulled by time and late-night fatigue. Ethan sat across from Marcus, the buzz of a dying neon sign outside reflecting in the window beside them. Marcus slid a laptop across the table. "Found it," he said simply. Ethan opened the device. Lines of code, server logs, and intercepted emails filled the screen, a digital trail meticulously unearthed by Marcus. "Encrypted traffic," Marcus explained. But buried inside, detailed plans, Cross's exit strategy. Ethan scrolled through the file's flight itineraries, legal documents, offshore account numbers, all pointing to one thing: Costa Rica. Ethan muttered. The resort was a front, but the relocation, real, Marcus confirmed. Cross planned to move Lillian and the kids offshore, permanent custody. New identities if needed. Ethan's grip on the table tightened. "When soon?" Marcus replied. The frozen assets slowed him down, but he's desperate now. Serrano's pressure, the cartel money, it's forcing his hand. Ethan's mind raced. "We can intercept," Ethan stated. "Use the relocation plan, strap him, and protect your family," Marcus added. Ethan's eyes sharpened, calculating, relentless. "Exactly," he affirmed. The cyber clue wasn't just information, it was an ambush point. Ethan Caldwell never wasted an opportunity. The law office conference room was cold, clinical, and exactly how Ethan preferred it. Alina Voss stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, as a digital presentation flickered to life beside her. On organized assault disguised as a custody negotiation. "We used the frozen trust as leverage," Alina explained. "Lillian's funds are locked. Cross is exposed, but they don't know we have their relocation plans." Ethan nodded, eyes fixed on the legal chessboard. "We draw them out," he said. "Force a meeting, make it look like I'm capitulating." "Exactly," Alina confirmed. "An informal sit-down. You play the defeated husband, I play the cautious attorney. We bait them into revealing more." Ethan leaned back, fingers steepled. "Lillian won't hold under pressure," he observed. "She's scared," Helena agreed. "And scared people talk." The door opened. An assistant handed over freshly filed court documents, emergency custody petitions, financial injunctions, subpoenas. Ethan flipped through them, his military mind parsing the legal terminology as easily as mission briefings. "Once the evidence drops, they're cornered," Ethan stated. "Unless they run," Elena warned. Ethan's gaze hardened. "They won't get the chance," he replied. The legal trap was set now. They waited for the enemy to walk straight into it. The Cross Ventures headquarters loomed over downtown D.C., a gleaming tower of steel and glass that screamed power and UNTOUCHABILITY. Ethan entered the lobby with calculated ease, a tailored suit, replacing his usual tactical attire. His military posture softened just enough to pass as a jaded businessman. A receptionist greeted him with a rehearsed smile. "Mr. Caldwell." Mr. Cross is expecting you. Ethan offered a polite nod, concealing the storm beneath the surface. The elevator ride was silent. The floors ticking upward ding a countdown to confrontation. Nathaniel Cross's office was exactly what Ethan expected: expensive, arrogant, soulless. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, while modern art and overpriced furniture filled the space. Cross stood by the window, sipping whiskey, his reflection merging with the monuments beyond. "Ethan," Cross greeted, his voice smooth, condescending. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Ethan kept his expression neutral. "I came to talk for the kids' sake." "Of course," Cross replied, motioning to a chair. "You and we both want what's best for them." Ethan sat, his eyes steady, his mind cataloging every detail: Cross's Rolex, the nervous twitch in his jaw, the faint tightness around his eyes. "Quick resolution benefits everyone," Ethan stated. "A clean divorce, reasonable custody, no drama." Cross smiled, too wide. "Music to my ears," he lied. Ethan let the silence stretch just enough to make Cross uneasy. "But," Ethan continued, "before I agree, I want to be sure no hidden agendas." Cross's eyes flickered, brief, but telling. "Of course," he said smoothly. Ethan leaned forward, voice low, "because if I find out you're using my family for money, for leverage, it won't end in a boardroom." The temperature in the room shifted. Cross's smile tightened. "Careful, Ethan," he warned. "Empty threats don't suit you." "Neither does losing," Ethan countered. They sat, two predators circling veiled civility, barely holding. The corporate facade was polished, but Ethan saw the cracks, and cracks always widened under pressure. Hours later, in the surveillance van parked discreetly down the street, Marcus handed Ethan a pair of noise-canceling headphones. "You're going to want to hear this," Marcus said, queuing up the recording. The hidden microphone planted earlier in Cross's office had captured every word. Ethan listened, his pulse steady as the audio played. Cross's voice, arrogant, careless. "She's desperate, Jameson." Between the frozen accounts and Ethan sniffing around, "She's ready to crack." A second voice, Lillian's attorney, Jameson Holt, replied, "We need this clean. If the Costa Rica transfer fails, the whole thing unravels." Cross laughed softly. "It won't fail. Worst case, we disappear. Lillian gets dragged down, but I walk." Ethan's jaw flexed. Then the final blow. "Cross, the bruises on the boy. He'll get over it. It's leverage. The kids, trust me." "Ethan's already lost them." The audio clicked off. Marcus watched Ethan carefully. "It's all admissible," Marcus confirmed. "Fraud, manipulation, abuse." Ethan's eyes hardened, the mask of restraint returning. "Send it to Elena," Ethan ordered. "And the feds." The confession was the final puzzle piece, and Ethan Caldwell never left evidence unused. The FBI field office pulsed with quiet urgency, agents moving briskly. Files exchanged, monitors flickering with live data. Ethan and Elena stood across from Special Agent Clara Monroe, sharp-eyed investigator with a reputation for exposing financial predators. "We've reviewed the recordings," Monroe said, flipping through the case file. "Cross has finished the fraud, the offshore money, the manipulation of your wife, and the cartel," Ethan asked. "Serrano's name flagged our database," Monroe confirmed. "Money laundering, narcotics ties, dangerous company." Elena spoke next. "What about the kids?" "Custody leverage," Monroe nodded. "We'll coordinate with family court." "The abuse allegation, Lucas's injury, it's enough to trigger emergency protection." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And Cross, arrest is imminent," Monroe assured. "But I'd like you present for the next meeting. It'll rattle him." "Good," Ethan replied. "Let him know the walls are closing in." Monroe gathered the files. "We'll take it from here." "But Ethan." "Yeah, careful," she warned. "Men like Cross don't go down easy." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Neither do I," he answered. The federal machine was engaged. The final moves approached. The conference room buzzed with tension, a polished battlefield, dressed in glass walls and sleek furniture. Lillian sat at one end of the table, her expression brittle. Beside her, Jameson Holt, the high-powered attorney, leafed through paperwork with feigned indifference. Ethan and Elena sat across from them. Calm, unreadable. The door opened. Nathaniel Cross entered, oozing false charm. Behind him, Special Agent Monroe slipped in quietly, observing. "Let's make this quick," Cross began, flashing a thin smile. "I have a jet to catch." Ethan's eyes darkened. Plans changed. Alina slid a folder across the table: bank statements, offshore transfers, and, most damning, the transcribed confession. Cross's bravado faltered. You've been busy, Jameson noted warily. Thorough, Alina corrected. Monroe stepped forward, her badge flashing. Mr. Cross, you're under federal investigation for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy, she declared. Lillian's eyes widened: shock, realization, then quiet devastation. The Costa Rica property doesn't exist, Ethan added coldly. The cartel ties, they'll sink you. Cross opened his mouth but no words came. Monroe motioned to waiting agents. Mr. Cross, you're coming with us. As the room descended into chaos, Ethan met Lillian's eyes: anger, regret, fear flickering across her face. The lies are over, Ethan said simply. The confrontation was done. The reckoning had begun. News of Nathaniel Cross's arrest spread like wildfire through the Georgetown elite, the financial circles, and the whispered back channels of organized crime. Ethan watched the fallout from a distance: press conferences, frozen assets, media, speculation. Lillian's world crumbled quickly. The house tied to Cross's fraudulent funds seized her legal counsel abandoned her. The children, displaced and confused, came to Ethan's care under temporary custody orders. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was stability. Lillian finally reached out, hollow eyes, quiet voice pleading for forgiveness, admitting her mistakes. I thought I was protecting them, she whispered. You were protecting yourself, Ethan corrected, but his tone lacked venom, only weary truth. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this, Lillian vowed. Ethan nodded once. Start by being honest, he said simply. The empire Cross built collapsed under the weight of his own arrogance. Ethan had reclaimed his ground, but rebuilding that would take time, and Ethan Caldwell was nothing if not patient. The quiet living room felt unfamiliar, not because of the furniture or decor, but because for the first time in months, the family was together. Ethan sat on the couch, Lucas on one side, arms crossed but present. Sophie curled up next to him, her hand loosely gripping his. Across from them, Lillian, nervous, exhausted, but stripped of pretense. I owe all of you the truth, Lillian began, her voice cracking under the weight of it. I made mistakes, bad ones. I believed Nathaniel when I shouldn't have. I let him poison this family. She paused, her eyes brimming. And I lied to all of you. Lucas's expression was guarded anger simmering beneath teenage defiance, but his eyes never left her. I'm sorry, Lillian whispered, voice breaking. For a moment, silence. Then Ethan spoke unsteady. We can't undo the past, he said, but we can stop lying to each other. That starts now. Sophie squeezed his hand, nodding. Lucas hesitated, then muttered, I'm still pissed at both of you, but I want my family back. Ethan's throat tightened, but he held steady. We'll rebuild, he promised. It won't be perfect, but it'll be honest. Lillian wiped her eyes. Gratitude and regret etched into her face. The family reckoning wasn't easy, but it was real, and for Ethan Caldwell, that was enough to start. The modest house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac, its brick facade and tidy lawn blending into the neighborhood with unassuming ease. But for Ethan, it wasn't just a house, it was a beginning. Lucas kicked a soccer ball in the backyard, his guarded posture softening as Sophie chased after him, their laughter tentative, but re-echoing off the fence. Inside, the walls were still bare, the furniture simple, but the space was theirs. Boxes lined the living room, a symbol of transition, of chaos, slowly giving way to order. Ethan stood at the window, watching his children, a quiet sense of purpose anchoring him. The security, consulting job steady, flexible, provided stability without pulling him away. The legal battles weren't over, but the war, the dangerous, manipulative storm that had engulfed his family, was. And in its place, a fragile peace. The front door opened. Lillian stepped inside, hesitant, respectful of boundaries, but there. Thank you, she said softly. For. Everything. Ethan nodded. We're figuring it out, he replied simply. She smiled faintly, eyes drifting to the backyard. It's good to see them smile, she admitted. Ethan's gaze remained steady. It's good to feel like a father again. The new home wasn't perfect, but it was safe, and for Ethan Caldwell, that was enough. The coffee shop was neutral, ground quiet, tucked away, familiar enough to keep tensions low. Ethan and Lillian sat across from each other, the steam from their drinks curling between them like invisible barriers. We're not going to get this right overnight, Lillian began, her hands wrapped around her mug. Ethan nodded. But we owe it to them to try. The custody agreement fair balance sat on the table between them. We'll split time evenly, Ethan clarified. School stability comes first. Decisions, medical education, we both sign off. No secrets, Lillian added, her voice quiet but steady. No manipulation. No Nathaniel Cross types near them, Ethan stated firmly. Lillian flinched but nodded. Agreed. The legal paperwork was only part of it. The real agreement. A silent promise to protect their children from the wreckage of their mistakes. Thank you, Lillian said softly. Ethan's expression remained guarded, but his words held no malice. We're not friends, he replied. But we're still their parents. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was cooperation. And for now, that was enough. The sun dipped low over the quiet suburb, casting long shadows across Ethan's new backyard. But peace was an illusion he never fully trusted. His phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. Marcus. Ethan answered, already bracing. We've got a problem, Marcus said without preamble. Cross may be gone, but Serrano, he's not. Talk, Ethan ordered, his voice flat. The cartel's cleaning house, Marcus explained. Cross's arrest spooked them. They think your family knows too much. Ethan's grip tightened around the phone. Threat subtle. For now, Marcus confirmed. Surveillance near the kids' school. Unmarked cars in the neighborhood. Just enough to send a message. Ethan's eyes hardened, his military instincts kicking in. We neutralized it quietly, he said. Full security protocols. Already started, Marcus replied. But we may need to escalate. Ethan glanced out the window. Lucas and Sophie played with cautious joy, unaware of the storm circling. They won't touch my family, Ethan vowed. The cartel threat was real, but Ethan Caldwell had faced worse, and this time, he wasn't alone. The evening air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of cut grass and the distant hum of traffic. Ethan sat on the back porch steps, watching Lucas juggle a soccer ball on the lawn. His son's movements were tense muscle memory, battling frustration but determined. Need a teammate? Ethan asked, standing. Lucas hesitated, then passed the ball. For the next hour, they played quietly, without forced conversation, just father and son, rebuilding something wordlessly. Afterward, they sat on the grass, breathing hard. I was angry, Lucas admitted finally, eyes fixed on the ground. At you, at Mom, at everything. Ethan nodded, listening. But I saw him for what he was. Lucas continued, meaning Cross, and you. You never gave up. Ethan's chest tightened, a quiet victory. Inside, Sophie helped unpack books onto the shelves, her eyes brighter, her shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. You like it here? Ethan asked, joining her. She smiled shyly. It feels safe. It wasn't perfect, but the walls were steady. The locks, securent, slowly. The wounds were healing. Ethan Caldwell wasn't just rebuilding a house. He was rebuilding his family. The school fundraiser was packed with parents, teachers, and kids buzzing with excitement. Amid the chaos, Ethan stood by the refreshment table, scanning the crowd with the quiet vigilance that never quite left him. Ethan Caldwell, a calm voice, asked beside him. He turned to find Dr. Rachel Harper, the school psychologist, her eyes steady, her demeanor warm yet professional. I've been working with Lucas and Sophie, she explained, offering a hand. Ethan shook it, noting the firm grip and the sharpness behind her eyes. Observant, competent, they've been through a lot, Rachel continued. But they're resilient thanks to you. Ethan's expression softened slightly. And thanks to you, I'd guess. Rachel smiled. Takes a team. They fell into easy conversation about the kids, about transitions, a flicker of connection beneath the surface. It's good to have steady people around them, Ethan admitted. And around you, Rachel added, her meaning clear but unspoken. As the kids ran by, laughing, Ethan allowed himself a quiet moment. Trust, fragile but forming. Rachel wasn't just a resource. She was an ally. And in Ethan Caldwell's world, that meant everything. The late-night meeting took place in a quiet industrial park, discreet, isolated, perfect for what Ethan had in mind. Marcus stood beside him, eyes scanning the perimeter, while Rachel's voice buzzed softly through an earpiece, relaying updates on the kids, safely tucked away with trusted friends. You sure about this? Marcus asked. Ethan's gaze was hard. We end it. No blood, no headlines. Just closure. The cartel's envoy arrived, 3 men, crisp suits over concealed weapons, eyes cold and calculating. Ethan stepped forward alone, calm and steady. I know who you are, he began. I know what you think you can leverage, but those kids, that family, they're off limits, the envoy sneered. You interfering with Serrano's interests was necessary. Ethan interrupted. He handed over a flash drive, financial data, legal threads, backdoor negotiations, proof that Serrano's loose ends tied back to them. Walk away, Ethan warned, quietly. Or, this goes to the Interpol. Everyone. The envoy studied him, measured, calculating, then finally nodded. You have Serrano's attention, the man admitted, and respect. Ethan didn't flinch. I'll settle for distance. The cartel men left no gunfire, no threats, just silent acknowledgement. Marcus exhaled. I hate peaceful endings. Me too, Ethan replied, but I love safe ones. The final strike wasn't explosive, but it was decisive. And Ethan Caldwell's war was finally over. The early morning sunlight poured through the kitchen windows of Ethan's new home, casting a soft glow across the modest space. Lucas munched cereal at the table, scrolling through his phone. Sophie braided her hair by the window, a quiet smile playing on her face. Ethan sipped coffee, watching them, present, safe, rebuilding. A knock at the door. Rachel stood on the porch, a small plant in hand, a housewarming gift, her eyes bright with possibility. First sign of a new chapter, she said, stepping inside. Ethan smiled faintly. Or at least, better roots. Lucas waved from the table. Sophie grinned shyly. They weren't just surviving, they were living. Rachel leaned against the counter, her voice teasing. You're not just a soldier, Ethan. You're a father first. Ethan nodded, the truth settling deep. The war is over, he replied. I fought for my family. Now, I'm home. The new beginning wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for Ethan Caldwell it was enough.